I know I talk to people sometimes locally here, and they will, they like investing, but they won't go to Minneapolis because it's this, this city that just hates landlords.
And they
Um,
do.
and that's fine, and that's the only place that I currently invest, and I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
I'm I've had a decent experience with the city, so I think it's a balancing act. You just have to know what you're getting into and work with this whichever system you're getting into.
Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hey, real quick before we get started, first of all, I wanted to thank everybody for joining us on the show and for listening. To all my loyal listeners, I really appreciate you, continuing to listen and support the show. If you can go on to iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever you listen and subscribe to the show, that would be fantastic. Spread the word too. I'd love to, have this reach more and more people. So if you could share it on social media or and just talk about it to other people, that would be fantastic. And the last thing is if you can go onto iTunes and give us a rating review, hopefully 5 stars, that would be great as well. It just helps us spread the word more, and it helps us continue to get really good guests on the show. We've had some fantastic guests, and I just want to be able to continue to bring fantastic value to you. Go onto our Facebook page too, Pillars of Wealth Facebook page, and I'd like to hear from you as a listener of what you're doing in business, what you've got going on, what you are maybe struggling with or being successful with, and then what we can do on the show to help push you to that next level. Maybe questions we can ask our guests, maybe guests that we can get on the show to talk about certain topics, certain things that are really you're needing some extra support with. So provide for us some feedback on Facebook, and you can also share this out on social media. That would be fantastic as well. I appreciate it. I appreciate you being a either new listener or a loyal listener. I definitely appreciate it, and we will get started with the show.
Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Hump Day Hustle, the show where we focus on business and real estate as our core pillars of wealth creation. My name is John Stiles with Bridge Realty, and I'm excited for another great episode. So today we're going to be talking about rent control. And this is a very interesting topic that, everybody's kind of wondering about how far are cities and states taking this. So with that, here's our host, Todd Dexheimer. Todd, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, John. How are you?
I'm doing good. We're enjoying the warmer weather here.
Finally, but yes, we're definitely enjoying the weather. I'm going to be in my bikini tomorrow. Picture that. No, but it's going to be like shorts and t-shirt weather practically. 50 degrees tomorrow. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Yep. It's wonderful. So
yeah. Are you picturing me in a bikini? Is that what
I'm trying not to.
That's what you're doing. That's good. So yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about rent control before we get to that. John, is there anything new you want to hit on? Any updates on your Airbnb that we don't know about? Anything like that?
Our Airbnb is chugging along. Things are picking up with it going into spring and summer. We're getting a lot more bookings. So I feel like it's going well. Somewhat it's kind of put on autopilot. We do have to respond to the booking requests and some questions, but I feel like it's not that big of a deal. So it's going really well.
Cool. Well, hopefully it continues to go, and you'll be the Airbnb king of the Twin Cities in no time.
We'll see. I'm not sure how much I'm really going to scale it up, but the one unit's going well.
Awesome. Well, for me, it's just still plugging away, man. I last time we talked, I was doing the capital raise and still doing the same thing, gearing up to be able to close on this property. Excited for it. It's the biggest property that'll be in my portfolio so far, and I think it's a really solid value add opportunity for our company and for my investors. So just excited about doing that. And there's just a lot of work that goes into it. It's kind of overwhelming at times, but hey, that's what we sign up for. And it's fun too. I do enjoy it. So uh, you get a little stressed, but you go, okay, at the end of the day, what else would I be wanting to do? That's what I want to be doing, is buying properties. And it's what I really enjoy doing. So it's just a whirlwind. The dust settles. It's like, oh, that was a lot of fun. Let's do it again. So that's what we crazy put ourselves through.
Yeah. Well,
Anybody who's caught the real estate or business bug knows exactly what I'm talking about, though, because you get, you get these times where you're just like, holy cow, there's a lot of work. We're really pushing and grinding. And then finally it all comes to, and you're just like, oh, that was awesome. It's worth it. Let's do it again.
Yep. It's fun to watch the process and watch people like yourself achieve what you set out to. So
yeah. Well, cool. So I wanted to talk about the rent control and then just landlord kind of laws. I think right now landlords are being looked at as being kind of the bad people, and they're maybe always looked at as being the bad people, but in good times where rents are going up quickly, we're really being seen as bad guys. It's very well known that there's not a lot of affordable housing. There's less affordable housing than what we need. Rents are going up and tenants are being squeezed. And so, and there's very low vacancies in most cities around the US. So it's a pretty well-known fact. And I think with that, people are going, oh, these greedy landlords, we need to put the screws to them. And that's being seen and being talked about in a lot of different cities and states around the US. And one of them in particular is Oregon, who put together some rent control. And that's got some real estate investors scared. It's got some real estate investors nervous. There's been cities in the past that have done rent control, but this is the first statewide rent control that Oregon has. Are you nervous?
Yeah. Well, I'm not too close to Oregon, so I'm not nervous really. But I haven't read up on Oregon, but what are they specifically doing that? I mean, because rent control can mean a lot of different things.
Yeah.
What are they specifically doing? Do you know?
Yeah. So Oregon has passed legislation that would basically limit rent increases to 7% annually. So it's still pretty healthy. It's not like they're saying you can only raise 1% or 2%. So it's still 7%. And then there are some exclusions. I know 15 years or newer buildings are excluded. So if you're building a brand new building, or if you've got a pretty new building, so A class basically, they're saying you can raise your rents as much as you want because A class people can afford it. And then I think it's like buildings under 5 units, or maybe it's 5 units and below, also can raise rents quite a bit. So they're targeting the apartment complexes. What they're doing is they're targeting the value add investor, honestly, which is what's been happening the most, right? People are buying these 70s, 80s built properties. They're renovating them. They're raising rents. The tenants are being displaced because they were paying, let's call it $800 for rent, and now they're being asked to pay $1,200 because it's this newly renovated unit in Portland or wherever. And that's what's been happening in all across the country. And so that's who they're trying to protect. And so think about it. It's no big deal if you own the property, right? Because a 7% increase if you own the property, and you've had it for a long time, you've already done the value add maybe, or, you're just trying to keep it trugging along, 7% is pretty healthy still. But let's say I buy a building. This is where it's going to affect people. If I buy a building and I want to raise rents by $200 a month to get it back up to market rent, I can't do that. Well, I can. It's just going to take me a long, long time because I can only raise it 7% annually. So that's where it's going to affect. So here's what I think. I think it's a bad thing. I understand trying to protect people. But what I think it's a bad thing is because, well, now you're not going to have people that are going to be able to renovate units because I'm not going to put money into this property if I can only raise my rent 7%. It just financially makes 0 sense. So you're going to have a lot of outdated housing stock as time goes. And so the older buildings are generally going to get neglected. The new buildings will be fine because 15 years or less, they can do what they want. But the old buildings are the ones that are going to be neglected. Therefore, those tenants that are living in the old buildings are getting neglected. And overall, to me, it's just not very, very sound strategy, in my opinion.
Yep. I read a lot about this for our local area here in Minneapolis, and it seems on the surface level that these politicians, they're well-intentioned, you would think, or they try to be, and they're playing to their base, which is, as in Minneapolis, we have a population that's like over 50% are renters. And so 50% of their constituents are in the situation where they're getting pushed around. If they were in high-end houses, but now their income hasn't gone up, maybe they're getting pushed down to the, market rate rentals. And then people in the market rate rentals are getting pushed down to what was the low income rentals. And then low income rentals get pushed out to where, So I think they're trying to take care of the bottom of the totem pole there, people that are getting pushed out. And you can't really blame them. I mean, that's who's voting them into power.
Yeah.
So they got to do something. So, but you're right. Is this the thing, this controlling rent increases? It can have some unintended consequences. So,
yeah. And history has shown, at least through the articles that I'm reading, by the way, history has shown that rent control actually causes more shortages in the affordable housing, which then makes it harder for, like I said, it makes it harder for owners to make upgrades, and it actually makes it harder for these low income housing people to find housing. And it actually benefits higher income households because now they've got nicer housing stock and probably more affordable housing stock as well. So it's generally hurting the people it's trying to help in the end. So, and that's, I could get all political on everybody. This is, if anybody's read Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, this is exactly like something out of that book where, politicians, where people try to basically control businesses and control other people. And, in the end, it only hurts what's going on. So do we have to figure out what's going on with affordable housing, how we can get more affordable housing for people and good affordable housing stock for people? Absolutely. I think that's important. Luxury housing is the only thing that's being built, and for good reason, because it's too expensive to build affordable housing. You just can't make your ROI work unless you can get government funding for it. But by rent control, I don't think that's the right answer. Hey, we're going to take a quick break, and I want to mention a few things. First of all, I've been doing some coaching, and I want to continue to kind of expand that slowly and take on a few clients. And up until recently, I didn't really believe in coaching and taking courses and stuff like that. But I recently, or I shouldn't say recently, it's been a few years now, hired a coach and saw immediate results and have been very happy with it, and decided, as my teaching background, I wanted to do some coaching myself and help other people get the results that I was able to achieve. And so if you're at that point where you think that's the spot for you, or maybe you just want to explore if it's right for you, reach out to me. I'd have a free discovery call with you. We want to make sure that it is the right step for you to take. There might be other things that you can do to get success, and coaching might not be it. But let's have that discovery call to find out if that is the step that you need to take. So it can really make a major impact in your business and get you to that next level. The other thing is John Stiles. He's on this show every single week with me on the Hump Day Hustle. And John Stiles is a real estate agent in Minnesota, and he will help you find a good investment property. John is very knowledgeable and can help you find an investment property. It can also help you sell your investment property. So reach out to John Stiles with Bridge Realty and connect with him. He'll also, consult with you and make sure you guys are the right fit. So give him a call if you're in Minnesota. Reach out to him. He'd love to help as well. Back to the show.
So, John, what about Minneapolis? You read up more on it than I did. What are some things that Minneapolis is doing right now for tenants?
Yeah, so they have recently adopted what they're calling a renter first policy. And I think it's their, second best option, because they can't do what they really would like to do, which is, full rent control. But, they've got a full publication on their website. But I think it's interesting, some of the recent things they put into place. So for some properties, they're requiring advance notice to tenants and the city before that property can be put up for sale. And so that's specifically for house properties, I believe 5+ unit buildings that are already considered as affordable housing. So they're trying again to protect those lower income tenants who are likely to be displaced when a new owner comes and takes over.
Yeah.
So they're giving advance notice, and they say one of the benefits that they believe is that this will give the opportunity for potential buyers to come into the picture that are more likely to keep that housing stock affordable. So whether that be a nonprofit or just somebody else who isn't looking to do a huge renovation and a huge increase in prices. So that's one thing they're doing. Go ahead and say what you think about that.
Yeah, so they're trying to even the playing field. So, like you said, so nonprofits, or in other words, so the city can help control who buys the housing stock. They want to make sure that somebody's willing to overpay for the property to help out the tenants that are currently there, basically. Which is another essentially way of forced rent control. It'll probably help the city, or maybe not necessarily the city, but the nonprofits and other, landlords that are willing to work within their program, the opportunity to overpay for the property, but yet get some government funding to keep it at the stable rents.
Yep.
My guess is what'll come out soon, and who knows if this will happen, but my guess is what'll come out are some city incentives, and you can be a landlord and get on their list of approved landlords that will get funding to buy these apartments and to keep them as affordable housing. And now when this comes out, now you have no disadvantage of buying these apartments, because a lot of apartments are sold off market. And I think that's the point, is they know they're being sold off market. They're not being heavily publicized, and nobody knows until the property actually gets sold. And the other thing that it'll do is, if you're forced to tell the city about it, tell all the tenants about it, it's going to be harder to do entity exchanges. And an entity exchange makes it so the city can't really track that it was a sale, or it's harder to track that the sale happened, and raise taxes. So it's going to help them hopefully raise taxes as well. However, I think you'll get kind of a black market, if you want to call it that, of apartments being sold through entity exchange. I mean, that's going to happen a lot, because landlords don't want to be part of what the city wants them to do. And I think that's probably going to be commonplace, where these sales are happening under the table. Nobody really knows about them.
Yeah, and I think, the mayor, Jacob Fry, has announced, I don't know the exact amount, but I think 21 million comes to mind as far as the budget of putting towards this affordable housing crisis that we have here. And, for sure, that's probably one of the ways that that money is going to be used, is to help out new owners. And so that they're going to have to sign some sort of contract that says they're going to keep the rent at X amount of whatever, so.
Now, as a landlord, as an owner of properties, do you decide, hey, I'll partake in this, or do you not? And that's the real question, is that if you disagree with it, well, then are you going to take a stand for it and not take any of the government money? Or are you going to go, well, it is what it is. It's the situation we're in. I'm going to take advantage of it and take the money and comply, basically. Mm-hmm. I think that's a big question that you got to decide, where do you want to go with that? And maybe you agree with it. And then if you agree with it, well, then it's just fine, right? Then you've got no moral dilemma there. But if you don't, you got to decide what's right. The other thing the city was trying to impose was, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with this, because the city of Minneapolis has tried to put their weight against landlords already. When they passed the Section 8 requirement, where all property owners had to accept Section 8, and that got challenged. The city got sued, and it got challenged, and it actually got reversed there in the end. So we've got some pretty good associations here. So we'll see what happens, and potentially the city's going to get sued again over this.
Yeah, well, and some of these things, they don't affect everybody, so if you've already got market rate properties, or that's what you're trying to buy, then these little stipulations and rules are not necessarily going to affect you. Mm-hmm. So I think that's, to some extent, how they begin the process. Is they just, they work with some people that are more willing to work with them. So one other stipulation related to that sale, again, related to low income housing, is there's a time frame after the sale. I think it's 90 days where you can't raise the rents.
Yeah.
And I think also you probably can't end any of the leases. I don't know. I'm not an expert on every single point, but something along those lines, so that, the existing tenants have the opportunity, they're giving them ample opportunity with the 60 days prior and the 90 days after to, find another option if that's what ends up needing to happen. So,
yeah. Which, again, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a big fan of government imposed restrictions. Some of them aren't all completely necessarily bad. But I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of government imposed restrictions. To me, it's all interesting. I mean, our market's always changing. Rent control is not new. Landlords being quote unquote targeted, or whatever you want to call it, isn't new. I'm not going to sit here and cry me a river for landlords. Do I like government control? No, I don't. But do I feel sorry for us? No, I don't. So we just have to be aware as property owners of what laws are happening around us and what states that we're investing in, and understand, look, if you're going to invest in a state like Minnesota, you're going to invest in a state like Oregon, you're going to invest in a state like California, you're going to have to deal with a lot of potential things that are going to, be negative against you, because in those states, they're imposing laws against capitalists, and they're trying to help the general person out more than the business owners. So it depends on what state you're in, but everything's different, and I think every state has some sort of, you still have to be very aware. Even if you're in, the quote unquote red states, the Texas and the, whatever, Florida and all the other red states, you still have to be aware of potential restrictions that can happen. That can happen within a city, even like Texas, where people think Texas is a very red state. Well, Austin, the capital, is very blue state or blue city. So, I mean, you're within that city and you probably have a good chance of rent control, and so just because things are going well right now in your city doesn't mean they're always going to. So you just got to be aware of it. What could happen to you? Pay attention to the political environment that's going on, just like you should be paying attention to all the other factors, the jobs and all that kind of stuff. Pay attention to the political conversations that are going on and understand how they're going to affect you. And also, I would say, don't overreact to it either. Like, we got to be common sense about it. Is it really going to destroy everything? Probably not. If you bought your property right, are you still going to be fine? Yeah. Is it something that's going to make you happy? Maybe not. But we want to be aware of what's going on. Where you really want to be aware is if you don't own the property there, you're looking into that city or state, and you got to decide, is this something I want to try to deal with?
Yeah. I know I talk to people sometimes locally here, and they will, they like investing, but they won't go to Minneapolis because it's this, this city that just hates landlords.
And they do.
and that's fine. And that's the only place that I currently invest, and I'm doing okay. I've had a decent experience with the city. So I think it's a balancing act. You just have to know what you're getting into and work with this, whichever system you're getting into. So.
Yeah. And I own plenty of properties in Minneapolis, and they hate landlords. They do. They don't like landlords. They would rather have no landlords, I think, than having landlords if they could. But it's not like it's the worst thing in the world to invest there. There's still a lot of profit to be made. There's still a lot of benefits to be invested in there. So as you said, you got to just weigh that and decide if it's right for you to invest there or not. And understand that, you're going to invest in a city like Minneapolis, they're going to put the screws to you if you're not following along with what they want you to do. And they don't like you. It is what it is.
Yeah. Don't be a slumlord though,
Yeah. And that's the thing is, most, a city like Minneapolis that doesn't like landlords, but they're going to be a lot harder on you, especially if you're a slumlord. If you're a slumlord, they're going to make sure they destroy you.
Yeah,
they do. That's every 3 to 5 years, we have somebody new in the paper that was destroyed by the city of Minneapolis that was a slumlord. Happens all the time.
Yeah.
We just had a guy that was in just a few years ago. So.
Yeah, well, and you don't really feel bad for those guys because they should have done their business a little bit better.
Right. Well, cool. Well, that's all I got. I think mostly I just wanted to talk about what's going on in the political environment with landlords, where we just got to be aware of what's happening. I think it's what happened in Oregon is going to happen more and more right now, unless we do hit a recession and rents do go down. I think as rents just continue to climb, this will happen more and more and continually happen in different cities and different states. And people just got to be aware of it.
Yep. Well, sounds good. To our listeners and viewers, if you have some certain experience with rent control, we'd love to hear about it, how that affected your particular property, or maybe affected your decision to buy or sell in a specific area.
Yeah, or even thoughts just on this topic in general and what you think about it. Maybe you're for it, maybe you're against it. Obviously, you can probably tell by my tone I'm slightly against it, but maybe you're for it. And so tell me why. What's the idea behind it? Because I'm a pretty logical person, and I may disagree with you, but it doesn't mean we can't have the conversation and try to understand where each person's coming from. So if you have an idea of why you agree with this, with rent control or with these, with restrictions on landlords, I'd love to hear from you too.
Yep, sounds good. So they can go to our Facebook page, Pillars of Wealth Creation, or they can go ahead and comment on the YouTube video. You can give us some feedback on iTunes as well. So,
yeah, or maybe the city of Minneapolis mayor wants to defend himself and say that they don't hate landlords. I don't know. Maybe, probably not though.
I would like to see them
agree with me.
amend this statement, which they have in their press release about their latest renter first policy.
Yeah.
The statement by Jacob Fry is that tenants often find themselves at an unfair disadvantage when they go against powerful, exploitative landlords. To level the playing field, Minneapolis is putting its weight behind protecting their livelihoods and stable housing.
Right.
So that statement doesn't really leave room for the rest of us who are being good landlords,
Yeah. They just assume that everybody's a jerk, everybody's exploiting tenants, and that's just all it is.
So,
and they're gonna push us around.
So Mayor Jacob Fry, we'd like to hear.
Yeah. Well, it's good that he can push his weight around now that he's in power. So, all right. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody listening, and have a fantastic rest of the day. Make every day a Saturday. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Couple things before we go. Again, go on to our Facebook page, Pillars of Wealth. We'd love to have you on there. Go on to iTunes, give us a rating and review, and subscribe to the show. Also, don't forget, reach out to me if you want any help with potentially growing your business, and reach out to John Stiles to help you buy or sell real estate. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it. Have a fantastic the rest of the day. And as I say, make every day a Saturday.